This call is being recorded.
Good morning, everyone. This is Renee Rentmeester. I'm the creator and executive producer of the Cooking Without Looking TV show and podcast. And today we are here with Rick Fox from New Jersey. Rick, how are you?
I'm just fine, Renee.
Well,
I like this sunny day we have today, and we are practicing some pretty extreme social distancing here in New Jersey, uh, as people are in many parts of the country. But I can still go out with my dog and take long walks, and it's sunny, and that's what I plan to do today.
oh, that's right. And we're in the middle of this coronavirus, and you're right near the epicenter.
Here we are. We're having difficulty here, but we're doing our best and learning how to use all kinds of virtual meeting programs.
Like we're doing today.
Like we're doing
So,
today.
so, tell us about how you get your grocery shopping done right now.
Well, we have we're using Peapod, we're using Amazon Fresh, we're using Whole Foods, anything we can get. It's difficult. Everybody else is doing the same thing. Our deliveries are very difficult to get. We have to do all kinds of checking and rechecking and to see if we can get a slot. But so you have to work hard at it. But so far we've been able to get slots, and also Amazon has been helpful.
Well, that's great. Now, do you have like any sort of a trick since you're blind? Do you have any special tricks that you're using to get into that delivery slot?
Well, the only trick that we've been told is to get on around the beginning of each day, since a lot of the places have 7 days. They go 7 days out. So if you get on at 12 o'clock, 12:01 on the next day, and you have a shot at getting a slot on the day that has just been refreshed.
So it's like a real trick to get in now. Who knew that this would happen, right? You
Who
own a
knew?
delivery service. You're like in gold.
That's true. It's one of those businesses that are benefiting.
Now, have the elder times have those helped in the grocery stores, or how's that going?
Well, from what I've heard, you go from 6 o'clock to 7:30, and a lot of times the shelves haven't been stocked yet, so you get a lot of empty shelves. I think whenever you go, it's crowded. Doesn't matter what time.
Right, right. Are you taking any special precautions?
The usual. You try to. What I've tried to do is, in some of the stores, I just went into a convenience store, and they have a long table set up between you and the register, so that helps you to keep distance, and you reach way out to pay. So
Wow,
there are no special precautions; they're just the standard ones.
I see. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, Rick.
I was blinded at birth back in 1952 from retinopathy of prematurity. I was born 2 months premature. So I was educated in the state of New Jersey, uh, and in New Jersey, the Commission for the Blind has been doing what they used to call mainstreaming. So I didn't go to school for the blind. I just went to my own neighborhood public schools, and then and that has its advantages and disadvantages.
Tell us
Um,
about it.
so the advantages, of course, are that you are with your friends and your neighbors. You can go home at night, and that's a big advantage.
Hmm.
And the disadvantage are that sometimes uh, the teachers have the same low expectations for blindness as other people in the neighborhood. And
No.
so as a kid, um, you find out that you can get away with certain things because you're blind, and you think you're beating the system, and that makes you feel pretty good as a kid. But in the long run, Sometimes you don't learn as much as you might. Sometimes you get away with things, which means that you don't do the work, um, and that's a big disadvantage.
So, Rick, tell us what some of your little tricks were to get away with things. Do you have any special ones?
I would none that I would brag about on the air.
Oh, come on, you can share with us. It's only like hundreds of people.
Yeah, well, there was a method of correcting homework that we used to do in middle school and elementary school, and you would just pass your paper to the person on your right, and they would correct it. And that worked pretty well for everybody but me because I was the only one who was using Braille. So I got to correct my own papers.
So you had all 100s, right?
Well, that was probably too extreme. I would usually add 5 or 6 points if I had errors. I would add maybe 4 or 5 points because if you got all 100s, you'd be found out pretty quickly.
That's true. Well, did you get found out?
No, of course, no. But that's a game that doesn't have a good ending because in the end, you know that you've been playing the system, and it doesn't do good for your confidence in the long run.
No, no. It's like you think that you can't be honest about your skills or your
Correct,
work.
correct. But that I think that is probably if it happened to me, it probably happened to others. That they as kids were able to beat the system and they got away with things, and it's a disservice to a person's education.
It is, it definitely. Well, so tell us more about your education. You went on to college, correct?
I did, and I was in college in a time when we were very idealistic and very romantic, and thinking about your career was considered mercenary in some circles. So I majored in religious studies, which doesn't prepare you for too much.
It gives you the basis for the rest of your life, though, right? You laid down
Yes,
some
it was
sort of
a very
foundation.
interesting major. I ended up in a training program at IBM. I was hired for a sales training program, and I did that, but it was difficult because the IBM sales manual was in print, and it was the size of a couple of phone books, so it didn't really work out with me in sales. So I ended up being a programmer for IBM for a while.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. You must have been one of the first people who were programmers with IBM
I
then.
don't think so. Programming, opened up pretty early, um, but I did have the good fortune of being around when the IBM screen reader was invented, and was able to use that. Um, and of course, I did not of course, but I had the use of a braille display, which as a programmer was really extremely helpful because you have to know about parentheses, punctuation marks, and it's a lot easier if you can read them in braille than if you have to listen for them with speech. At least for me, it is. So I was really there since I was hired in 1977. I was there for all of the technology inventions that have changed a lot of our lives with the screen reading programs, the braille displays, and I was on the I was on the cutting edge of a lot of that in terms of being able to get my hands on that equipment.
It sounds like that. Now there's always a discussion between what's better, knowing Braille or the technology, and there's a big difference that most of us wouldn't realize. What's your preference?
Um, well, the braille revolution has occurred with the technology. The problem is that it's very expensive, although there are now some braille displays coming on the market that are much less expensive. Um, but so I think it was thought, for a while that Braille wouldn't be needed
Mm-hmm.
because of speech. And my feeling is that Braille is needed as much as ever because of, in terms of educational purposes, we have spelling, we have the ability to read to people with Braille, which is very helpful if you're doing any kind of oral presentations. And in business, presentations are really quite, people have to do them all the time. So to be able to get up and do a PowerPoint presentation using Braille, to be able to give make a speech of some kind is uh, very helpful and is done many times in the business environment. So um, I think Braille is as important now as ever, and Braille is more available now than ever because anything that's online, you can get in Braille now. So if I read a book review, I can buy it on Apple Books. I can get it on Bookshare. I can have a Braille book in front of me within 3 minutes of me reading the review, which was not the case when I was growing up.
It's gotten much easier now, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
Well, you must have some good stories about people with your blindness and everything. What are some of the stories that would enlighten us?
I don't know about enlightenment, but I lived in New York City for since from 1977 to 1986. I lived right in the middle of Manhattan, so I had a lot of encounters with people because I used a cane for 6 of those years, and then I got a seeing eye dog. So the first 6 years, I had a cane, and all of us who use canes know that we encounter people with lots of misconceptions. I would say that in Manhattan, I was grabbed on almost every corner.
Oh my God.
And so you really have to learn techniques of um, de escalating the situation. And of course, I did pretty well most of the time, but there were times when I would um, boil over and treat people in a way that was uh, angry and not helpful. But
Sure.
most of the time, I learned to deal with it so that I could get the person to stop grabbing and pulling. Um, because we all know that their intentions are good, but it's very difficult if people are grabbing you that often during the day.
Right, that's a good reminder. We always have to ask first because if you think about it, close your eyes. I mean, I'm talking to the sighted people. Close your eyes and just imagine someone grabbing you on the street. The first thing you want to do is slug them because you're afraid, right?
Yes, it's either fear or just the physical. Um, what do you call it? The first reaction that we all have when someone out of the blue, without you asking permission, grabs you. And the other problem is when they grab you, they're usually tense because they're not really sure what they're doing. Um, they're under,
I know.
they're under some stress themselves because they feel as if they need to help. They probably feel as if you're in danger, so they're grabbing you with a certain amount of tension and stress, and that stress communicates itself pretty quickly physically.
So you got two stressed people trying to cross the road, probably. That's probably when they try and help you, correct?
Yeah, I try to talk to them quickly
Mm-hmm.
and calm everybody down. That's what I learned.
Sure.
So, hi, how are you? What's your name? Is there anything, whatever. So you try to get the situation calmed down. But it's a situation where if you only have to deal with it once a day, is not a big problem. But if you have to deal with it 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 or 40 times a day, it gets difficult.
Well, what do you suggest sighted people do when they see a person such as yourself crossing the road or whatever and they want to help or what shall they do?
Um, I think it's impossible to read the mind of any other person. So there's no way for me to say when a person needs help or not, and there's no way that anybody knows unless you get an extreme case or an obvious case. But it may look obvious. But I think the best thing to do is to identify yourself with a first name and say, "Hi, my name is so and so. Would you like some help?" And that gives the person the opportunity to say yes or no.
Right. That it's just simple communication, isn't it?
Well, it's very respectful too because it gives the person the opportunity to either accept the help or refuse it. And most people are pretty gracious. If they're given that opportunity, they will either accept it and refuse it, and it's a good, you know, friendly and polite communication.
Sure.
But
Often
the
if
minute somebody grabs and pulls,
oh,
then you have a much more difficult communication going on.
right, exactly. I'll often say, "Excuse me, would you like to use my arm or my shoulder?" I'll offer my arm or my shoulder to someone.
Well, that's the other thing that many people don't know. Many people think that the way to guide a blind person is to take their elbow and pull or push, but that isn't really a good way of guiding. So I always say, hey, if I take your arm, I'll be able to. That's a better way of doing it. And so that's what I do if I want to walk with somebody. Is I take their elbow.
Yes, yes. Well, has this happened to you recently, especially since this coronavirus thing? I think everyone's in like hyper help you out mode.
No, well, people are in distance mode. They talk to me from a distance. Um, so I have found that now that I have a dog, I get that grabbing much less.
Oh,
Which
that
one of
makes
the advantages
sense.
is um, everything has its advantages and disadvantages. As I said about mainstreaming, the same is true with almost anything. And of course, the same is true with having a dog. And one of the advantages for me is that most people are not grabbing and pulling as they used to.
That's great. That's a huge advantage.
It is.
So now I know you told me that you don't really cook, right?
I had the good fortune of marrying somebody who's a much better cook than I. So um, I do a lot of assisting, though. I'm the assistant chef.
and
And the
and
other
what's
thing, the thing that I do is grill. I like to grill.
Oh, there you go. Now I can just imagine the people in the audience going, "Okay, he's totally blind and he's grilling. Tell us about your grilling experiences."
Well, the timer is a great help. Um, so, and also, a talking meat thermometer is a great help with grilling. But I do a lot with my hands to feel the texture of the meat, and so um, I can either turn the grill off temporarily, so I can touch the top of the meat and see how firm it is,
Hmm.
um, or I can keep the grill on and be pretty quick about it. I get my hand in there and I touch the meat and get it out of there as quick as possible.
Oh, wow. A daredevil.
But I enjoy grilling. I enjoy the sound of it. I enjoy the smells. And I have a long, one of those long grill spatulas. And
Hmm.
actually, I've got one that has a top and a bottom, so I can get in there and grab, um, close the spatula, turn it over, open it, and get the spatula out of there. So I've established with various cuts of meat how much time I need to grill it, and then I will use my hands to judge the firmness of the meat.
Wow, so it's a lot of touching and it's a lot of intuition too at the same time.
Yeah, and you can tell by the odor of something when it's beginning to cook.
Yes, and when it's done too, right?
Correct, correct. And so when it's done, what I'll do is I'll take it off the grill and then use my hands to try to figure out how done it is. And I can usually measure pretty well if the meat is done to the way I want it, doing it that way.
Are you a well done kind of guy or a rare kind of guy?
No, I'm at least medium. My wife likes it medium well, so.
Right. So
But
then
I really enjoy grilling. It's just it's a tactile experience. It's a sensory experience, and it brings me back to the old cave. So I enjoy it.
it's like a very freeing experience because you're doing it outside and you're like you say you're using all of your senses, the
Yes.
smells, the touch of feeling the meat to see if it's done. We would never really think about that, but even if you're making a hamburger indoors and you can feel when it's done because it's much softer when it's not, but when it's done it's much firmer.
Yeah, it has a firmness to it. Now I know some blind people who use welder's gloves to grab the meat and turn it over.
Hmm.
Um, but I have to say that putting my hand right in the fire, I just haven't been able to get my courage up to do that, even with welder's gloves.
They put their hand in the fire with a welder's glove?
Yeah, I've heard that as a technique.
Oh my gosh. I never really thought about that. You know what? I had a friend, and she was totally blind and she was a caterer. When she grilled, she would use one of those OV gloves, but she didn't really put her hands deep into the fire. It was like off. She would put her like meat and veggies off to the side from the fire, so she didn't have to do that. But yeah, that's pretty frightening to anybody thinking about putting your hand in there.
Well, the welder's gloves are, they're obviously welding is a pretty hot skill, but I've never done it,
Sure.
and so since and I haven't had anybody actually teach me to do it. I've read about it and I've heard people talk about it, but it is a technique that I've heard people use. Um, but with burgers, it's such a thin piece of meat. I think you've got to get in with a spatula. Um,
Yeah.
so we love burgers, but we love steaks and other kinds of meat, and so I'm the carnivore in the family, and in the summer I get out and grill, and I really enjoy doing that.
Now, do you marinate your like if you're
Yes,
doing steaks? What's your favorite marinade to put on them?
I don't have a favorite. My wife picks them, puts them on, and gives them to me to grill.
And they're a mystery grill, mystery meat.
Yeah, I just grill it and eat it and tell her how good it is.
Well, that's pretty safe then. You guys have been married a long time. You know, yeah, that's probably a lot safer than putting your hand in the grill.
Yes, but I just really enjoy getting out there and watching God cook the meat, because I always tell people I don't cook it, God cooks it. I just take it off in time.
You're the god of the barbecue.
Yeah. So that's when I do cooking. Of course, we team up in the kitchen, and so I do a lot of cutting and tearing. The cutting the vegetables, peeling them, um, and getting them ready for either cooking or putting in the salad.
Oh, that's wonderful. So your wife has her own personal sous chef.
That's right. That's right.
What's your favorite what's the favorite barbecue dish that you've done?
There's nothing to me that beats a good steak. I'm sorry.
You don't have to be sorry. That's
So
very
what? One of my favorite dinners goes back to childhood because we grew up in New Jersey, and in the summer we would do steaks on the grill, uh, and we would have Jersey tomatoes right off the vine, right out of the garden, and New Jersey corn on the cob. And I'm telling you that I don't know anything better and sweeter than New Jersey corn. You go right down to the store. We would have these farms that would sell the corn right from when they picked it. And if
wow.
you ate it that day, there was nothing better than a good steak, Jersey tomatoes, and Jersey corn, drizzling with
Oh.
butter.
That sounds amazing. I just want to run out and do that now. And I'm in Miami, so I could actually do it. So,
And of course, the growing season is relatively short for good, sweet New Jersey corn and for Jersey tomatoes. So it would be right around the end of July and into August. And right now I'm thinking of we would eat outside, and you could hear the cicadas in the background, and it would be a beautiful velvety summer evening with the with the butter basically dripping off your lips and the corn. Oh, that is my favorite dinner.
that is amazing. That sounds so tremendous. And it's so simple too. You don't have to like go all out. That's very nice and simple.
Yeah, and I was always the husker, the corn husker.
Right. getting getting all those little hairs all over you.
Yes.
So you got all the fun jobs.
Yeah, well, I'm still the cleanup guy around here, so my
Oh
my
no.
my attitude is if my wife is going to cook, I'm going to clean up. So
There you go.
that's
It's
what
a
we do.
perfect team spirit, I think. Well, Rick, when people want to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
Um, well, people can email me at richardfox1@comcast.net. And if people want to share grilling techniques, I'm up for it.
There you go. Something to do while we're waiting to get out of this corona coma that we're in, right?
It's true. It's true. Grilling is a great way uh, to have some fun, and the weather's getting to the point now where it's. I think it'll be almost 60 today, so we may end up going out and grilling for lunch.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Rick, for being with us today and teaching us a lot of things about blind grilling and how to get through the coronavirus and
I
everything
enjoy
else.
talking with you, Renee.
Oh, thank you. I've enjoyed talking with you. And this has been Renee Rentmeester, creator, executive producer of the Cooking Without Looking show. We're changing the way we see blindness. And you can reach us out www.cookingwithoutlookingtv.wordpress.com, or you can call us at 305-200-9104. Take care. Have a wonderful day, Rick.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.